our studios in Southern California. Welcome to the Unscared Sports Show. It is Wednesday, April 11th. I am Doug Katona along with
Brian Mackenzie.
Big show today. Usually we have guests. Usually we're talking about CrossFit workouts. We've been talking about the open WOD if you've seen the last couple of shows, but today's going to be the day that we start to talk about nutrition, what you're eating for performance, pre, post, during. We're going to throw a lot at you, a very educationally based show.
Ooh.
We've been getting some questions tossed at us as well that we want to address.
Maybe a rat hole of a show.
It always ends up being a rat hole.
No, it's a rat. Yeah, it's a rat hole at a seminar, and it's a rat hole at a training camp, and it's a rat hole when you open up your mouth anywhere that people want to know about nutrition.
Why do you think that is?
Because people don't want to experiment. They want to hear what a quick fix is. They want to hear what will work for them, and then they just go. We all fall into this boat where we want to hear it. We want to hear what we can do to change it, instead of going out and experimenting with it and testing it.
It's kind of like training.
A little bit.
You know?
A little bit.
It's amazing to me that people spend so much time worrying and stressing about meals and timing. It's actually fairly simple when you really look at it, and I think we're going to break that down today in detail.
Yeah.
For a lot of you, you're probably going to be, well, let me just say you may be taken aback by what we tell you because we're going to speak truth. It's kind of like training, exposing weakness. Same thing happens in your diet.
Truth.
Truth. So I got a question. Everybody always wants to know, what did we eat? Tell everybody what you've done today so far and what did you have for breakfast, and
Nope.
tell us about your workout. Come on.
Nope.
Come on.
Woke up this morning at 5:30, and I had a smoothie that was half a can of coconut milk, some water, apple, half a banana. This is just for the flavor component because watch the rest. About a cup of broccoli and about 3 or 4 cups of spinach, and then some grass-fed protein in there as well. That was my first smoothie, and then I went about 45 minutes later and climbed a quick 750 feet up my backyard and with the poochie. Then came back down, cleaned up, went to breakfast, and I got 4 poached eggs on a bed of sautéed spinach. Then for lunch, went to La Serena Grill, and we just had the avocado lime salad, which is greens with avocado dressing, and I had double carne asada on there, which is from grass-fed beef. So that has been so far. I will do another smoothie, just like the one I just did this morning, probably after the show. And then this evening I will I will crush some meat of some sort. I'm not going to actually go out and kill it.
That would be fun though, wouldn't it?
Actually, I used to set up with my compound bows. I used to have rabbits that would come and they'd just litter the front lawn. And I swear to God, I was like, I'm just going to start picking these things off. And
yeah, but the rabbits in Southern California are like that big. They're only like a snack.
Well, a couple of them would, land enough protein. So anyway, I was going to do that, but they've disappeared. They no longer are here. So I don't know what's up. So anyway, I'll eat some sort of meat, a vegetable, and probably some avocado or some, coconut fat or olive oil or something with that. And that is more or less my day, although that varies and changes, within the meal structure. It's always a shit ton of vegetable matter, and lots of high-quality protein and lots of high-quality fats.
And what's interesting is that we had lunch together, so I had the same thing, but I had some salmon on there, wild salmon. But, this is going to show you how athletes can train a lot like we do, and also eat fairly clean. I had a smoothie this morning with a little bit of almond butter in there, spinach, kale, and half of an avocado. Came back, worked out, had another protein powdered shake, a little handful of nuts, which I only do probably 2 or 3 days a week, and an apple. And on the way over here, I just hydrated up really well. I'm going to do another workout this afternoon. I'm probably going to go out and do the same thing.
I did a little body weight workout before, like the whole show went down too. So that was my body weight stuff kind of for the week. Where, you know.
Well, I think it's, you know, you have to remember, you have to eat in response to your training. So just because you do a 10-minute CrossFit workout doesn't mean you have carte blanche to go out there and crush a whole bunch of food. And I think if you look at, I think a lot of people put so much emphasis on, you know, counting calories or counting blocks, and I think that's really difficult for a lot of people. So I think we want to try to simplify that.
Yeah, but you know, it's a good starting place is to weigh and measure, and you know, the whole zone thing is excellent to start with and go with. And what you'll inevitably find out is that the cleaner you eat, the better you eat, the better you get. You know, and if you don't find that out, tweak something. You know, there are plenty of athletes, like I've got one that, you know, hates eating vegetables, and I will throw med balls at her if I catch that. She just hates eating vegetables. This same person also was eating Lucky Charms at the CrossFit Games last year.
You know, we were just talking
and she can get away with it, but that doesn't mean it's the best thing to be doing.
Do you realize that we've been talking about this, and off-camera producer Eli Rodriguez is really getting crushed right now because he knows he can't have his Fruit Loops in the morning anymore.
Well, he still eats like shit. He has always eaten like shit.
And Taco Asylum.
Well, we've been working on
he thinks Taco Asylum is like the healthy flour tortillas with gourmet tacos. Like, that's the cheat, man. That's the cheat meal.
You know, I've got
And he walks in yesterday. No, he walked in yesterday. He walked in the house, and he's like, I got an allergic reaction to something really bad the other day.
Was that broccoli?
And my wife did too. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head, going, "Why do you think you get allergies all the time? Why do you think you're so allergic to things?"
Which is so funny. No one wants to take a look at
autoimmune response.
No one wants to take a look at normal food. I mean, you know, there's 30% of kids are overweight. 17% of those kids are obese. I mean, this is not going away, and it's actually quite simple.
Bottlenecking.
It's bottlenecking.
It's $100. It's the bottle. It's the way the new bottleneck is going to occur.
I mean, diabetes is one of the fastest growing diseases right now, and adult onset diabetes is running rampant. So the CrossFitters are a little bit different. So those of you out there that train a lot, I mean, let's jump into it. Let's talk about probably the most important thing. People want to talk about food at the macro level. We like to talk a lot about making sure you're hydrated. I mean, how imperative is hydration?
Top of the line. Like, you know, I've been, like, I like to talk about when I talk about nutrition at the seminars or even within the training camps, is we've got this hierarchy of life, and it requires oxygen, it requires water, and it requires amino acids. And second on that list is hydration, and you got to be breathing right. But you know, which that goes down another rat hole with, you know, with movement. But the fact is hydration is paramount, and you will die in 3 days from dehydration. You will last 30 days without eating.
Well, and if you're competing, a 3% loss in hydration results in about a 10% less muscle contractile ability. So 3%, 10%, those are big numbers, huge, especially when you're talking CrossFit.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And I think when we talk hydration, I think it's important to note that we're not just talking regular water. We're talking electrolyte replacement, which is, especially endurance athletes, you know, if how many people do you see in Globo Gym world, or people that aren't as experienced in the endurance sports world, and right after they're just drinking plain water and continuing to flush out a lot of their electrolytes? I mean, I think it's important that people realize that hydration means assembling those electrolytes along with that fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to absorb the water. You can't just flush everything out. And you know, Aqua Hydrate's done a great job with that. Salt Stick is easily the best electrolyte replacement, which we actually now have on the site in our store. But you know, they've done a great job, and you know, it allows for people to get the proper, you know, electrolytes into the system in order to not, you know, to absorb the water.
You know, a lot of people talk about during event hydration, and we're going to touch on the same thing with the actual nutritional component, but it's arguably just as, if not more important, to make sure you're properly hydrated before and after. And it's the same thing with eating as well. And I think a lot of people go into an event a little bit dehydrated and then try to play catch up during. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Nope. Your body won't respond that fast. So, I mean, thoughts on that? Because I know both of us have done long ultra events, and what's been your experience with that?
Once the hydration's off, it's like everything shuts down. Your nutrition will shut down. Your performance will start to shut down. It's just an inevitable rapacious cycle that which so many people. I would argue that is probably the leading cause of why people inevitably fail or drop out, or in a race. And what we tend to see, even with the dehydration, is the mental factor starts to go as well, where you just start to get in this negative cycle of coming down, and it's this place where people they start falling apart.
The mental acuity component, I think, is huge. I was doing an ultra event, and again, don't mistake hunger for hydration. I think you have to balance that out, and especially those of you that are competing, say 2 hours or less. If you're out there and you're going full throttle, if you're in a criterium or you're in a sprint do or a sprint try or even a metcon of 20 minutes, you should be able to get by without pumping yourself full of an electrolyte replacement fluid. And this is where everybody, the slower you go, the more you may need. The faster you are, you're not seeing marathoners that are in the 2 hour to 220 range taking on a whole lot of fluid during.
No. And you tend to notice that the fitter you get, the faster you get, that you need less and less as you go. But the longer the duration of the event, the more important it becomes. And we go right back to that before and after period as to what you're doing and how hydrated are you going in, and are you replacing that stuff, getting it back up as soon as it's done.
Which is, I think, a reason why we like the Salt Stick product, because Salt Stick, Jonathan Toker has done a great job with that. It's again, we talked about the electrolytes and how critical that is, and some of you have piped in and asked us, what do we mean by electrolytes? And everybody thinks it's just sodium, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah. Although sodium being the biggest component that you're losing when you're sweating, and probably the factor in the cramping, things like that, there are many other factors involved, and there are many other, things you need.
Yeah. So I think the hydration component is really important. We talk about it on our seminar all the time. And the other big question that has been floating in has been, well, what do I eat during my events? And our response usually is, well, let's take a look at what you're eating before the event and what you're eating after the event. That's going to decide what you'll need during the event, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people screw that up time and time again, and they always want to experiment with something, which
how
you
many
should.
People are so nervous that before the competition they don't eat, and then they go into it, and it's just a day of just being at a loss with something, and it's...
Well, and there's a lot of confusion out there too on, should I take this powder or this supplement before? I mean, should I be taking this fat or this protein before? And I think the solution to that is to train your body to adapt, to be able to find things that work for you sensibly, eating clean, eating the right type of protein, the right type of fat. And then you do have to access carbohydrate, but usually if you're just functioning and you're doing 1 or 2 workouts a day, the carbohydrate issue isn't as important as keeping the inflammation down with the essential fats and getting high quality protein.
It's not important at all if you're one or two short workouts a day, and if you're eating clean, there won't be a carbohydrate factor. There won't be a I'm going to replace my my muscle glycogen factor. There is not. That's not going to exist. Once you start getting into multiples that are longer, or even being an endurance athlete and getting into the longer duration stuff, sure, it might start to play a role, but to what degree? And that's kind of what we've been experimenting with for the last year and a half.
Yeah, a lot of you know that we're very involved with our nutrition, and I have a saying that a bad diet will outperform good training 7 days a week. You can train really well, but if you're eating like crap, it's going to come out in your training, and you'll probably be that typical person of being at 100% of your 75%, right?
Yeah.
So I think let's look at that for a second. I think that pre, post, and during, and a lot of you know we've been playing around with some things over the last year or so, and we've been looking at different proteins and fats, and we've been doing events, and a lot of our athletes are using a certain product that we've been playing with for a while. You've been in this game a long time as well. Just share with everybody kind of some of our recent findings and through good science what we've been discovering in the protein and the fat side of things. Because I think a lot of people are confused about protein and fat and how that plays.
It's odd, but anything really under 3 hours, we're not finding you need any carbohydrate at all, and you can function off of the medium chain fats and the protein. Finding whatever it is that you can. Although we may have something soon.
Yes.
Inevitably getting out a little longer, we find that you're going to need more of that combination of things, and to what degree.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get confused. And again, for those of you that are training really hard, it may be difficult for you within 30 minutes of closing out your workout to take on a grass-fed meal with a plate of steamed broccoli. We understand that, and this is where there's been a lot of controversy and kind of questions on what exactly to take in, and so far it seems that most people get some great experience from taking in some sort of liquefied protein and fat.
Yeah, easy. This is where supplementation really plays its key role. I mean, unless you can eat chicken and choke down coconut oil when you're rolling, and some people can, or or even drink tea. Romanov had me doing that. At any rate, he going on. It's you've got to find out what works for you. You've got to test it, and you've got to be your own experiment. And that goes true with your nutrition at home. The before and after, or what you're eating continually. And it is so common theme that well, can I eat the cheat meal? Can I eat? And it's like, sure, if that's what your life, if that's what you want. Ironically, what you find out when you're testing this stuff and you're looking for performance advantage, that the cheat meals just become few and far between.
Well, you'll find most people that make that transition to either paleo or they've started with zone, which we said is a pretty wise thing to do, and you kind of learn how to acclimatize to those things, and you'll adapt with your training, and that does take a while. So people have to understand in the beginning, your body kind of turns itself over about every 6 months. So sometimes you have to be patient and stay with something for a while, especially on when you're starting to change protein sources, especially, and for women that's especially true. But that does take a while. People that switch over to paleo in the beginning, in the first 2 or 3 weeks, if you're an endurance athlete, you may see a little bit of a performance dip. But then after that, what we find is that people don't crave the sugars anymore. Their energy levels are pretty good. And I think for the guys out there, getting that growth hormone level up is really, really imperative. And bread, rice, pasta, grain, cereal doesn't do that. High quality protein does.
Yes, sir.
So we were driving to lunch, and he and I, we talk all the time about supplementation, and we're reading things all the time. We're talking to a lot of foodies and scientists on different levels with supplementation and so on. And we were just at a training camp a while back in Texas, and I can't tell you how many questions we got on what about this supplement, and what about that supplement, and what about these pills. And I'm like, whoa. Just tell me what you're eating,
yeah.
and you say it really well. You just say dark green vegetable matter and
just a shit ton of vegetables. Eat a lot of clean, healthy, meat, organic sources in that matter, and lots of healthy fat. Lots of fat. Got to create that buffer for your ability, so your body can, recover from the beatings that you're putting it through.
Yeah, and then what I think a good saying is that you can't lose fat unless you eat fat. So for those of you that are looking to trim down a little bit, it used to be where a lot of people would cut out the carbohydrate, and this was classic. And they'd say, "Well, I'm going to cut out my carbohydrate," and then lo and behold, they lost a lot of weight. But what they didn't realize was that they were actually removing a lot of water for their system. We talk about it a lot where, look, for every gram of carbohydrate you consume, your body stores about 2.5 grams of water. Cut out a lot of carbohydrate, guess what's going to happen, right?
Gonna drop water.
Going to drop water. So, and for those of you that train a lot, remember, your body will tell you what you want. And doesn't it just make sense? And to us, it's simple. If you're training really hard and you need to recover, what did you break down when you train? It's your muscle tissue. What repairs muscle tissue?
Amino acids.
Amino acids. And what's going to help keep that inflammation down, which is a lot of the essential fats. So
never heard of an essential carbohydrate.
You never heard of an essential carbohydrate?
Look, we're not saying to get rid of the carbohydrates. All right, that's not what we're saying. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of the endurance community and a lot of people are fascinated with the fact that they're just following what everybody's told them to do, and versus going and experimenting and seeing what they can, how their body actually functions, especially if they're eating clean.
Right? Yeah. And I think that we look at it in the endurance sports world that protein is a necessity, fat is a necessity, and if you're getting a lot of those nutrient dense, which is really important, nutrient dense vegetables, are you getting a lot of cluck for your buck out of the calories that you're consuming versus empty calories that are not nutrient dense or are not enriched with a lot of vitamins and minerals, which are a lot of those carbohydrates that a lot of endurance athletes used to take, So it's amazing to me if you just think in terms of athleticism and what your body goes through in the course of a hard workout or a hard session. It's muscle tissue breakdown, which needs to be replenished with protein and amino acids.
Boom.
And a lot of inflammation.
Dude, a lot of inflammation. And I mean, what happens if you're eating medium chain fats? What have we found? That they've got eicosanoids in them. What do our eicosanoids do? Right? Reduce inflammation.
Well, I think one of the things that you made a great point about, which a lot of people don't really know, is they get confused about cholesterols.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great point. If you want to share that with everybody.
So I have high cholesterol. My doctor is refusing to do the VAP test, right? Which, if you do have high cholesterol and you're freaked out, go ahead and get that test done. Ask to have that test done or find a lab that will do that test, because you want to take a look at particle size, right? And Rob Wolf originally told me about this, and it's very true. The fact is that you want fat and puffy cholesterol. You want it to work the way it's supposed to transport things, versus having the small and dense cholesterol, which is the stuff that gets embedded. And this is what it tells you what's going on with that. And what we tend to find with people who are eating clean, that even if they have a high cholesterol number within the structure of the westernized, scripture of what it is we're gauging cholesterol off of, that it's entirely inaccurate, that it doesn't mean anything unless unless the density of that particle size is actually what matters.
And so I think it's really important that, all of you that are starting to make those changes.
I believe that there's never really been any proof that high cholesterol has caused a heart attack.
That's amazing.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that in the test he was talking about, it's called a VAP test. And you should, most of you, again, if you're starting to make some wholesale changes across the board with nutrition, one of the best starting points, and we do this with a lot of our athletes, is to get a blood panel done. That will probably tell you, and make sure you have somebody that understands not just how to read it, but understands you as an athlete and where you are, because looking at the athlete is a little bit, an athlete needs to be under a microscope a little bit more.
Yeah, so, totally.
So you move on from there, and then you move on to supplements. Again, to the questions that have been coming in is what supplements and this and that. And again, macronutrients first, nutrient dense. I remember Rob Wolf telling me a couple of years ago that the old caloric restriction with adequate nutrition, the CRAN component of it, less is more as long as it's nutrient dense. And again, the name of the game is to be as strong as possible, as fast as possible, as lean as possible. And if you're carrying around a bunch of extra weight, that's going to hurt you. So that's a big issue in CrossFit. I know with a lot of you out there, especially the women, the weight issue is a big thing. So,
which goes back to another thing, that if you are eating clean and you are not getting rid of the weight and you're holding on to weight, that you have other factors going on. that you should be getting those blood panels done and understanding whether your cortisol is off, your insulin levels are off, any other hormones that are going on that might be off, because when we look at the stress or the other things or the amount of caffeine people are taking in, you tend to see some of these things not leaning out correctly, and their body's not typically functioning the way they should.
Yeah, so look, the moral of the story is that there's so many factors. Why make the nutrition so complicated? Make it simple and look at some of the other factors.
You can make it complicated.
Right.
And it will be complicated.
Right. That's right. And I think, let's give everybody, and we have a few minutes left, and again, questions are coming in on, well, what do you guys eat, and what do you feed your athletes, and
what are you supplementing when you're
what are you
training?
Supplementing, and again, more on that later, because we do have something that we think is going to be fantastic for not just during but pre and post as well that we'll tell you about down the road. But maybe in the minutes we have left, everybody wants to know, what are the best choices for nutrient dense dark green vegetables?
Dark green vegetables, bottom line.
Broccoli, kale, spinach, arugula,
Brussels sprouts. Just goes on, man.
Yeah, and when we're talking protein, obviously the animal meats are imperative.
Yeah.
Preferably wild or grass fed if you can, because it's going to actually carry higher quality than non.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're looking at essential fat sources,
avocados, oils like olive oils, coconut fat. Huge.
For those of you that have a sweet tooth, having a few coconut flakes at night sometimes will satisfy that. You can also put that in your smoothie in the morning. Tastes really good. So you can. Well, taste is really important. See, that's the thing.
I do like the coconut milk, which it tastes good, but you have to consider that one can is literally like 600 and something. That's like an 8-ounce can, like 600 and something calories of lots of fat, a little bit of carbohydrate, and a little bit of protein. So it's dense, and putting that into a smoothie can fill you up rather quick.
And the leaner you are, and the
more you need it. The more the more intense, the more you're training, the leaner you are, the easier it's going to be to assimilate that stuff.
Those of you that are doing doubles frequently, you should be fine. And again, you got to gauge that, right? You got to take a look at that. And I would say one of the issues we get a lot in our seminars, people will ask us, what about nuts? Can I supplement with nuts? And you've got to be really careful with that about throwing off that omega-3, that omega-6. It used to be you could see a CrossFitter a mile away because they'd have a bucket full of nuts with them. Yeah. It's almost like that should be kind of an emergency go-to situation.
Yeah.
So. So we hope that helped you a little bit. The hydration is the most important thing, and then looking at that macronutrient level, and you've got to experiment with it and kind of watch the volume of the carbohydrates, but get the carbohydrates in that your body's going to utilize, and that actually supply you with some vitamins and minerals. It's
nutrient dense. I
mean, it's funny when you think about it. We have 90 seconds left, but people don't talk about a lot about vitamin and mineral supplementation anymore. It's all about branched chain amino acids and everything else, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to get those. And
I don't have any issues with taking branched chain amino acids. I take them, but I'm always looking to get most of what I'm looking to get everything out of me from my food, and if I can't do that, and if I can get something extra out of supplementation, then I'll do it.
Well said. I think too, in final remark for me is that don't make this a chore. Don't make this a struggle for you. Eating clean is actually extremely tasty, and it's really healthy for you. We've been eating this way for a long time, and you know what? I don't miss all the crap I used to eat as an endurance athlete, and I can go out and do 100-mile rides and be just fine on the protein and the fat. It does work.
Kill 100-mile bike rides in 40-mile-an-hour wind.
Nasty 40-mile-an-hour wind. So thanks for tuning in to the Unscared Sports Show. We're going to see you in 2 weeks with a special guest on stage. So get ready for that.
Oh.
Everybody have a good 2 weeks.
See you.